Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. I am home for the weekend, but we've switched the calendar to May. We've entered the second month of the year. I feel like May is like one of the underrated times of the baseball season. Like you still have like the novelty of the new season. Like, you're still very much learning things about all these teams and who's breaking out. You still know that there's so much season left, but at the same time, things are like established enough to where you can start, making some serious judgments on players and teams. I love May. It's my favorite. It might be my favorite month of the regular season. I think it's definitely the most underrated one, and we got that to look forward to for the next few weeks now.
Yeah, it is fun. It is fun, and especially during while we were in college, it was also fun because then the school year ended and we could watch a lot more. That's all. Sometimes I was busy enough to where it felt like the season almost kind of started for me in mid-May. But yeah, it can be a fun time of year. But yeah, we've entered it. We've entered your birthday month as well. It's coming up in 3 weeks or so. But yeah, and despite it being early May, it did not stop the baseball world from giving us a pretty big name trade. This guy has been in a big name trade before, and that is not stopping here as Luis Arraez, a popular baseball figure, was traded from the very struggling Miami Marlins to the San Diego Padres for, I believe, 3 prospects, none of them of much notoriety. I saw a lot of Marlins fans complaining about the return or lack thereof. But yeah, what did you think about this trade when it happened?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of shock seeing a big trade go down on, what was it, May 3rd at the time that it happened. Yeah, the prospects they got, Dylan Head is now their number 5 prospect in the system, according to MLB Pipeline. Nathan Martorella, I believe that guy's name is number 11. There was one more guy, and I don't remember who it was. But it was some guys that were around, the organization. They're definitely all in the top 50. I know that, or top 30 rather. But and then they're also getting Woo Suk Go, who is a reliever that a left-handed reliever that the Padres got over the offseason. My initial reaction to this trade is that I think this is Peter Bendix coming in, seeing that immediately this is just not a team that is built for long-term success, and having a desire to go out and get his players because, he inherited a roster that was built by another front office head. In this case, it was Kim Ng. And, despite going to the playoffs last year, I think a lot of people, ourselves included, agreed that, while last year was a very successful year for the Miami Marlins, it was just very hard to look at that roster and think of a long-term success. The Baltimore Orioles made it to the playoffs last year for the first time in 7 years, and when they lost, we were all saying, hey, they'll be back. This is only the beginning for this group, this young group. The Marlins had, a similar situation. They've made the playoffs for the first time in a full season since 2003. They got eliminated quickly in the playoffs. No one really had that same sentiment of, hey, this is just the beginning for this group. They'll be back. At least, I'm not going to compare it to the Orioles in the sense of to the same sentiment, because there was just more of that sentiment with the Orioles. But I feel like I didn't hear it at all with the Marlins. And I think this is, Peter Bendix being like, okay, this group is not going to win this year. Let me just get my guys. And it starts with trading probably the best hitter that the Marlins have had since the 2017 to 2018 fire sale.
Yeah, most likely. Definitely. Yeah, probably the biggest offensive producers. They've gone from a primarily offensive team to a team primarily based on pitching. And yeah, like our expectations were low on the Marlins coming into this year. We both put them in last place. I think projections might have had the Nationals in last place, but I'm sure that a lot of other people also had the Marlins in last because yeah, there was a sense of lack of sustainability. I mean, by run differential, they outperformed their Pythagorean win-loss, the run differential based metric by 9 wins. So there was that, and also the fact that they were entering this year very injured with Sandy Alcantara. Yuri Perez is also, on the shelf for a very long time now. I know Braxton Garrett entered the season with an on the IL. I think he still might be on the IL. So yeah, it just didn't look very good. And yeah, I think this is kind of what the Marlins need to do. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate truth. Luis Arraez has this year and next year left, and it's kind of hard to see this Marlins team right now and think, oh yeah, but this year will be weird, but they'll compete next year. I don't think that's really a fair sentiment to put on them. So yeah, it makes sense to move someone with even multiple years left, because yeah, they need to, with especially with the budget they have, it's going to be a lot more than signing a couple guys to make them formidable for the future.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm very interested to see where the Marlins draw the line here because, in terms of position players, is there really anyone in this organization that you'd consider untouchable if Luis Arraez isn't that? I mean, I know that they've propped up Jazz Chisholm to be kind of the face of the franchise for a while. It's hard to believe that I find it hard to believe that Peter Bendix would draw the line at him. He's for a guy that's considered the face of a franchise, he doesn't really have the established success of a lot of other guys that are propped up that way for any particular franchise. Um, and I'd be very curious to see how far they're willing to go between now and July 31st with who they're willing to get rid of because they do have Sandy Alcantara on a contract that they locked him up for. They do have Jesus Luzardo still for a few years of control. They do still have Braxton Garrett, Yuri Perez, for future years. All four of those guys are on the IL right now, as you mentioned. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how far they're willing to take this. And this would be what, like the fifth Marlins fire sale in their existence if they decide to go through with this to a larger extent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it
We're losing
happened.
track at this point.
Yeah, it happened like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then obviously, um the 2017 to 18 one as well.
Yeah, there was
But
the Burley trade. There was
oh
the
yeah,
Ray.
the 2012, yeah, the 2012 disaster. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah, they've it it's almost, yeah, it's almost seasonal. It almost just seems to happen like
yeah,
kind of, yeah, once every like Olympics or presidential term, you get a Marlins fire sale. So that just seems to happen. But anyway, yeah, like yeah, no one should be untouchable outside of maybe a few pitchers. That's for sure. I mean, if I feel like if the Marlins are looking um at any position player as untouchable, I don't I don't think they're gonna, end up that's gonna end up being a successful venture for them. They Because yeah, there's not really too much that's valuable long term from a positional player standpoint. And yeah, I think the focus should be on getting position players for potentially the future instead of focusing on this year, next year, and maybe the year after. Because yeah, I mean, what are they, like 9-24 right now? And it doesn't seem like,
I don't even think it's that. I think it's worse than that.
yeah,
They lost 20-4 to Oakland last night. They are 9-26. Yeah, they are slightly worse than
yeah,
what you asked.
yeah, not so yeah, they're 9-26 right now, and it doesn't seem like, yeah, obviously last year was kind of a organizationally lucky season for them. There's some work to be done, especially when you're in that division.
Yeah. When you break it down, I feel like we're going to ask a lot of very uh interesting questions about Kim Ng's tenure because she did a lot of fantastic things for the organization, right? Like she flipped 2 months of Starling Marte for 6 years of Jesus Luzardo. That was a iconic trade that kind of officially ended the A's little run there in the late 2010s and early 2020s. Um, she flipped Jake Eder for Jake Berger and made two trades in that one, and then the Josh Bell trade that propelled them into the playoffs. I think I've maintained the take on this podcast that the winners of the trade deadline, if you evaluate it from the trade deadline to the end of the regular season last year, were the Marlins. That's a team that made two fantastic trades that got them into the playoffs. And whatever happened there, but I think the reality is the team wasn't set up for long-term success. And I don't know how much there is to blame for the GM because ownership did not make any huge long-term commitments other than Sandy Alcantara during that time, right? I mean, if we look at their payroll breakdown right now, how many guys do they have locked up beyond a few years? Sandy Alcantara is the only one that they have guaranteed money going to past 2025. But that doesn't include, and yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna take the club option on Avisal Garcia. So, yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, so do we want to get into a little bit of some of the reaction of this because it does spark a lot of the Luis Arraez fandom to unfortunately for lack of a better term arise again. Sorry for the pun, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're seeing tweets from Marlins fans saying, they they traded the best hitter of this generation, which also muddles the definition of hitter. I guess he's the best at hitting the highest in terms of
yeah.
average, but
He's best at hitting the ball.
yeah, at making contact with the ball.
Yeah, but
But
sometimes it matters where the ball goes.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it's funny because Luis Arraez very famously doesn't have much range on defense, but the range of opinions that exist within him as a player are probably the greatest that I've seen in my lifetime, right? I mean, you have people that say he is the greatest hitter of the generation. You have Jim Bowden saying on MLB Network Radio that he's like a mix of Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, and Rod Carew. Uh, and you have people that think he completely sucks. And I think 90% of if you're looking at the famous bell curve meme that exists of him, 90% of people in the center are like, no, he's a pretty good bat. He's a solid hitter. And that's definitely I think where you and I lie, but maybe a little shifted to the left, if anything. Um, but yeah, that's
yeah.
there are a long range of opinions that exist within Luis Arraez, and it's very fun to see them come out during certain times, like when he was hitting 400 in June last year during the trade right now. It's entertainment for sure.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what made me want to dip into this comp here. And I won't mention the name until after, but looking at Luis Arraez since the start of last year, which was, his, this if we're going since the start of last year, that's mostly including that amazing season he had last year. But going back to last year, he has a 386 on base percentage and 129 weighted runs created plus. There is another hitter who player B. So, and actually, why I mentioned this, I'll preface this by saying, so Arraez DH'd last night. He's probably going to be a DH for the most part. So it kind of takes away any idea of potential defensive value that he had. I know his outs above average was were disastrous last year and years before that, but defensive runs saved actually didn't mind him too much. But I think what we know about Arraez's defense is the Twins moved him to first base for Jorge Polanco, who is not really a good defender anyway. So that's what they thought of Arraez, and the Padres are not going to be putting him out on defense either. So he's not really a valuable defensive asset. So I'm comparing Arraez to someone who also is not very much a defensive asset either, considering this guy's a first baseman. But so since the start of last year, Arraez has a 386 on base percentage and 129 weighted runs created plus. This other guy, this first baseman, also has a 386 on base percentage since the start of last year and a 128 weighted runs created plus. And that player is Lamont Wade Jr. And he's someone who I happen to think is actually kind of underrated, as opposed to Luis Arraez, who gets a lot of notoriety. But like when we're talking about this trade, I think we should imagine it as Lamont Wade Jr. got traded, because that's kind of the value that we have. And if Lamont Wade Jr. Got traded, I think it would be decently significant, but nothing really earth shattering. And that's kind of what I think about this Luis Arraez trade is, the Padres got a good bat. They're not going to get a good base runner out of this. They're not going to get a good defender out of this. This guy's just going to be a decent bat who's going to improve their lineup, but not really much else. And that's kind of the objective takeaway for me with Luis Arraez, especially with the fact that he's not going to be playing defense. Is, he's probably going to be 25% above average at the plate and he's going to get on base a lot. But also, when guys don't get on base via hit and get on base via walk, that's also good. So it should kind of hold the same value. But yeah, like it's kind of like Lamont Wade Jr. just got traded. When looking at it through the numbers that matter more.
One thing that I found very humorous was on the Savant page for Luis Arraez. You know how on every Savant page they'll show the similar batters to each hitter or each pitcher, showing like guys that had similar batted ball profiles, not even necessarily results based, but more just like, hey, this guy was a similar type hitter. The number one guy for Luis Arraez in 2024 was 2021 Adam Frazier, which is maybe like the worst thing for Padres fans to see, because if you remember, Adam Frazier made the All-Star team with the Pirates in 2021 and then got traded to the Padres at the deadline and then went on to put up a 662 OPS and 86 OPS plus with a 267 average in 57 games. So I'm sure that's given some Padres fans some PTSD, saying that they just traded for Adam Frazier again based on what Savant says.
Yeah, and granted, Arraez didn't, he didn't start the season ideally, but it's not crazy far off from probably his realistic, sustainable production and what that looks like. And I think part of the reason why I compare him to Wade is because Lamont Wade Jr. is a guy. I think his average since the start of last year is around 270 or even below 270, but he just has a really, really high walk rate, and like, but it's just overall looking at it, they get on base the same amount. It's just Arraez does it in the way that people like more, and yeah. So, and I will say, Arraez does have a decently higher slugging percentage, but Wade plays in one of the most pitcher friendly ballparks in baseball. So that's why I used the weighted runs created plus to compare them, and they're only 1 point off in that. So yeah, I think it's cool for the Padres. It'll improve their team, but it's not anything crazy. I mean, yeah, like the Dylan Cease acquisition that they made before the season is obviously going to be
probably
more
more significant.
Yeah,
for sure. One thing that just is an extremely saber niche thing to watch for. Luis Arraez has kind of been on a Chris Davis with a K type streak. In 2021, exactly 41.2% of his batted balls went straight away, which is definitely good for a guy like him because he's not getting shifted a lot up the middle. Usually means it's going to be a single because he tends to hit a lot of line drives and ground balls. He had that exact same percentage in 2022 and 2023. So he's hit 41.2% straightaway percentage for the last 3 seasons. He's at 38.3% this year. So if he can get that 4 years in a row, Chris Davis very famously hit 247 for 4 straight years, I think it was. So that's definitely something to watch for. So I decided to indulge this Tony Gwynn comparison with Luis Arraez, and it came back very similarly, but I don't know if that really means what people want to believe it means. So I looked at plus stats, which means anything with a plus in sabermetrics means it's going off of a league average basis. A lot of people will say it's ballpark adjusted, and it is to a degree, but league adjustments usually mean a lot more unless it's like a Rockies player, because then the ballpark adjustments are a lot more extreme. But in Tony Gwynn's entire career from 1982 through 2001, he had a 29% K rate plus and a 128% average plus. That means that his strikeout rate was 71% below the league average, and his batting average was 28 points above the league average. Luis Arraez, since 2022, the first in 2 straight years in which he won batting titles, he had a 29% K rate plus and a 135 average plus. So on a league adjustment basis, he has the same strikeout rate as Tony Gwynn did for his entire career and a better average in relation to the league. Now, this is obviously comes with a major caveat because Tony Gwynn was working with much different standards in the 80s and 90s, right? Strikeout rates were way down, batting averages were way up. So Luis Arraez is, doing it to the same degree on a league adjustment basis, but less on a just general results basis, which is probably where the comparisons come from. But this is also, granted, 10,000 Tony Gwynn plate appearances versus 1,300 Luis Arraez plate appearances, so it does come with another caveat there in sample size. So, I get it. I get where the comparisons come from. I don't necessarily agree with them, but also like, I mean, if Tony Gwynn was just a earlier version of Luis Arraez, what does that say about Tony Gwynn?
True. Yeah. I mean, I think
That's
I think who was it? Petriello put out like the comps of Tony Gwynn and like Bobby Abreu, and
yeah.
people all up
People got
in
mad.
arms. And yeah, Gwynn is one of those guys where yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer, but people like him more than maybe he garnered based off performance, because yeah, he did
Because he faced Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz 877 times and he struck out twice.
yeah yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, like yeah, he swung and missed 6 times in his career. So like yeah, that's people like Tony Gwynn because he played the contact game. He succeeded that
to
way,
a
but
very extreme.
yeah, to like yeah, the most extreme, and it ended up in a really good career. I mean, granted, the guy had a 132 career OPS plus in over 10,000 plate appearances. That's obviously a Hall of Famer. It's just the fact that people act the way people talk about him. It's like it's like he had a career 150 OPS plus, when in reality he was 32% above league average, not one of the greatest hitters ever. He was one of the greatest contact hitters ever, but that doesn't mean he was one of the greatest hitters ever.
Chris, you're gonna hate this comparison, and I just wanted to know it's not based on how I view them as players. I just view them as who they're viewed as. But I feel like Tony Gwynn, for like the Facebook meme people that are over 60 years old, is like the Greg Maddux of hitters.
Yeah, I feel like we've yeah, talked about it before, because yeah, like with Maddox, he was someone, and Maddox's career sometimes gets misunderstood because people think
Sometimes,
that yeah,
sometimes, yeah.
people think Maddox
Topped
threw
out at
like
86 in his entire career.
yeah, and they think that he threw slow for the league, when in reality he probably threw about average for the league. I think about when like Shane Bieber was in his like absolute prime, like 2020, 2021. He wasn't really throwing, like Bieber wasn't really throwing above league average by much. That's kind of
Hmm.
how I view Maddox in his prime. Like obviously I love Maddox because he was like one of the most unique pitchers ever and probably had the greatest command of any pitcher ever. It's just, I think people overemphasize that he didn't strike a lot of guys out. He struck out kind of league average. And he also probably threw his fastball at about league average. So, and with Gwynn, I think that, yeah, I think, like maybe his doesn't get misconstrued as much, but
It's
it's
different in that
certainly,
like people misunderstood how Greg Maddux was as a player. People understand who Tony Gwynn was as a hitter, but they kind of misunderstand what it really means in the grand scheme of things, I think, is the way to put it.
um, yeah, right. And I think they pay less attention to like the effect of his results as opposed to how he got those results. And
Hmm.
maybe that's the same thing with Maddox. Um, so yeah, like if that makes any sense. But yeah, it's always fun to talk about people's
Yeah, I do.
reactions
I
to
do
Luis
believe
Arraez.
that we haven't actually got into really what we think of the trade for the teams. Um, I do like it for both in the sense. I mean, I think it's a huge dub for the Padres in the sense that they are literally paying Luis Arraez the league minimum, and the Padres are taking on all of his $8 million that are owed this year. So I mean, yeah, you are giving up quite a bit, but you're essentially getting a free everyday bat. That's gonna give you a 125 OPS plus, very
Yeah,
likely.
the fact they're not paying anything is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it means that much to the Marlins because it's like it's $8 million this year, right? It's not like a crippling amount of debt, and it's only this year and a year where that is already kind of lost anyway.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah, this is definitely interesting on the San Diego side. It does improve their team, I would agree. But they I mean, obviously this includes the one game of Arise, but they do have um the fifth most runs per game in Major League Baseball. I believe the fourth highest weighted runs created plus in all of baseball. So offense wasn't necessarily a problem, but they did have, with Machado as the DH, they did have some random guys filling in at third, with Tyler Wade and I think Igwe
Ige,
Ige Rosario, who, yeah, I mean, Ige Rosario actually put up good numbers, but obviously that's probably not necessarily sustainable where you'd obviously rather have Luis Arraez in that lineup than him. So yeah, it's an upgrade, but yeah, I wonder if San Diego is possibly looking at more pitching options because that seems to be um, more of their thorn in their side.
yeah, and I mean, I think the Padres are gonna really enjoy the on base percentage aspect of Luis Arraez's game. That's kind of something that they have could use a little more of in their lineup. They rank like fifth in slugging, but only like seventh in OBP. So that was definitely one thing where they could have used a little more. And Luis Arraez is like one of the best guys out there for that. I mean, no matter how he accumulates the OBP, I mean people associate it with a lot more with walks, but if you have a high batting average, you're going to have a high OBP.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, like 'cause people think of walks with on base percentage because it includes walks where average doesn't. But yeah, I mean, if you're singling like every three at bats, then yeah, you're gonna have a high on base percentage. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's a net positive for the Padres at least for this year for sure. Obviously those prospects could turn out however they turn out, but yeah, it'll help them out. But I think the message is don't think that this is gonna really change their team that much. It's just they have a fun guy who's gonna be pretty offensively productive for them this year.
I also do think there's a lot of inherent value in the fact that Luis Arraez will be DHing now that this deal has happened, right? I mean, the Padres already have quite the influx of infielders, right? And like there was all those conversations a month ago about how everyone on their team is a shortstop, or at least was a shortstop at some point. Luis Arraez, I don't think ever was, but nonetheless, right? I mean, you have Manny Machado going back to third post surgery. You already have Ha-Seong Kim at shortstop, Xander Bogaerts at second, and Jay Cronenworth at first. And when you look at their defensive metrics, none of them are worth taking off the field for Luis Arraez. So the fact that they can let him DH and kind of do his thing, I think is huge because since 2023, he is tied for the eighth lowest outs above average in all of baseball. So you are getting a uh, bad fielder. I mean, is there a better way of putting it? I mean, based on what the metrics say, because I mean, Fangraphs agrees. Like, is that putting it too harshly? Because I mean,
No,
let's
yeah,
be honest here.
he's a bad fielder.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and this year the Padres rank even without Machado on the field, the Padres rank fourth in infield outs above average. I'm sure that was even higher last year when they had Machado for longer or for
Mhm.
the whole year. Or actually it wasn't, but they were top six last year. But but yeah, I mean a very talented defensive infield with Kim in the middle, Kim and Bogarts in the middle. Bogarts is, he's not a bad defensive shortstop, but Kim is so good that they have to put him there, and Bogarts is at second now and playing pretty well there. Cronenworth is a shortstop slash second baseman turned first baseman. Like he's very talented on that side of the diamond. And yeah, Manny Machado, like you can't talk enough about his defensive prowess. So yeah, no reason to put Arraez at a defensive position right now. And because yeah, uh it would significantly blunder the team. Yes, and yeah, like I guess it maybe is that little bit of a Kyle Schwarber effect where he's not necessarily dragging the defense down. He's just going to be a DH.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can't believe Kyle Schwarber has negative 55.6 defensive runs above average since the start of 2022.
Yeah, if he was just a
Holy
DH the
cow.
entire time, it would be higher. Um,
hmm
yeah. But but yeah. Anything more on the Arise trade?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could talk about the return here for the Marlins. I'm looking at Baseball America right now, so all credit goes to them here. But Dylan Head is a 19-year-old outfielder. He's a plus plus runner, as they say. Um, so we'll have to see what his offense is like and how often he's able to get on base, to be able to run like that. They also got Jacob Marksey, a 22-year-old outfielder, who was ranked as the Padres' number 12 prospect before the trade. Dylan Head, by the way, was number 8. Another outfielder, uh, all 5 tools, fringe average or better. So we'll see, what he's really able to take off with once he's in the Miami system. And then Nathan Martorella, who's the first baseman, 23 years old, was 18 in the Padres system. First baseman. So, you certainly hope that he can hit. But his MILB career slash line is 266, 370, 438. So he's been getting on base a lot, walking a lot. And we'll need to see the power come in a little bit. But yeah. And then Woo Suk Go, the only guy in this trade with major league experience. He just came over from Korea. And he hasn't actually has he pitched in the did he pitch with the Padres in the majors this year? All right, yeah, no, they put him in San Antonio, their double A affiliate, where he did have 10.9 strikeouts per nine and only 2.5 walks per nine with no home runs given up in 12 and a third innings. So good FIP numbers. Looks like he's been getting batted quite a bit with 10.2 hits per nine. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that return looks. I think it's a decent return for the Marlins, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned a 19-year-old, and that's probably intentional. Like they don't have to be getting someone who's going to be major league ready in the next year. If like
No.
they're looking at people down the line who could turn into something, and I'm sure they're looking at the potential upside of someone who's younger and maybe doesn't appear as valuable now, but could be more valuable a little later on. So that's probably what they're trying to do. But
Yeah,
but yeah, anything more on the Arise trade?
I think that's all we got.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the big trade that's happened. And yeah, some other transactions have gone down. Unfortunately, a significant player going to the IL, unfortunately, has been frequenting the IL the past 4 years now. But Mike Trout apparently tore his meniscus, felt something during a game earlier on this week. Yeah, what were your thoughts on this unfortunate development here?
Yeah, I mean, I've always hated the narrative about Mike Trout being injured, not because I think it's incorrect. I just hate that it's a narrative. Because what are you supposed to do at this point to rebut it? I mean, it just does keep happening every year. Trout answered some questions when he went on the IL, seemed very emotional. And like, I don't know, this is the last guy you want to see this happen to because he's made it very clear he wants to stay with the Angels, even though they've given him very little reason to want to do so and a lot of reason to for fans to side with him if he ever did decide to leave. That Jeff Fletcher reported that it was a partial medial. I'm not even gonna try pronouncing that. I'm not in the medical field at all, but I looked up what Jeff Fletcher said the diagnosis was. And from what I found on Google, it said 6 to 8 weeks recovery time if you're in sports. So that's thankfully that doesn't sound too bad. It sounds like he'd be able to return this year and get some meaningful playing time in before the end of the season. I mean, the Angels are pretty much already out of it, right? They're what, 12-19, I think, right now. They
12 and
lost a
21.
bunch, 12-21 right now. Um, they were out of it already, but yeah, now they have to go on without Mike Trout. So good luck to anyone who decides they still want to watch this team for the next 2 months. Credit to you. If you are a fan of the team, that will continue to press on. But yeah, that's insanely rough.
Yeah, it is. And he was having a very good year this year. 142 OPS plus this year. Slugging 541, still leads MLB in homers, despite, missing the last week. So yeah, I mean, obviously he's still got it. And I think, what sticks out for me, unfortunately, is like this, how it kind of affects the Mike Trout legacy, because we know how legendary that start to his career was. Maybe it's arguably the greatest start to a career ever. That like 2012 to 2019 run. 3 MVPs, maybe could have won five, objectively speaking, and was obviously the best player of the 2010s, and it wasn't even a question. And I think people still sometimes underrate him. I mean, we saw it last year when people were asking, "Oh, would you rather, have Bryce Harper or Mike Trout?" It's like, yeah, I mean, what are we talking about here? It's obviously still Mike Trout. It's people, and the problem with these injuries is now that prime is becoming more of a distant memory, and that's what's
Mhm.
truly tragic about it. Is we know how good Mike Trout is, even when he still is on the field. It's just that prime of playing 150 games and putting up 8, 9 wins above replacement every single year, that's becoming more and more of a distant memory, unfortunately. And yeah, it really stinks. And because yeah, this is kind of our guy growing up. When we got into baseball, this was the best player in baseball. And it's not like he's gotten worse. It's just he's not playing, and that's the worst thing about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still believe that prime Mike Trout, like the talent is still in there somewhere. Uh, and the less opportunities we get to see it, the more people are going to forget as time continues to pass on. Because, yeah, I mean, he homered in his first at bat this year against Corbin Burns on opening day, and everyone was saying like Mike Trout revenge season, like he's here to remind everyone, like he's still here, and he was. He did slump a little bit for a few games, but he was one of the first players to reach one F4. I have that tradition of tweeting how many games it takes to reach one F4 every single year, and I think it's been under 20 games every year since like 2013, if I remember correctly. But it's yeah, we the thing is we never really get to see it yet because he keeps unfortunately not being able to stay on the field. And the thing that sucks, I think, with this news especially is that it like really truly came out of nowhere. Like I don't even think he got taken out of the previous game with an injury. Like it just was kind of a bombshell for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Yeah, it just out of thin air. And it's weird, like, it's obviously somewhat shocking, but also in a weird way, not really surprising. It's just something you kind of sort of expect to see. It's just a matter of what it's going to be. And unfortunately, or I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, but it seems like every year it's a different type of injury. He's never really had knee problems before, but this year it's a knee thing, and last year, it was a left arm thing, and I think the year before that, or I think in 2021 it was a calf thing. So it's kind of all over the place, which is weird, and I don't know what. Obviously, we don't know the solution to that, but um, it does kind of stink. And yeah, the thing with the thing with Trout, and what makes people want to compare like Harper to him, is the fact that Trout hasn't had that season since 2019. Even though Trout is obviously way better than Bryce Harper, it's just we haven't seen it in full form in since before the pandemic.
Yeah, no, that is this, and even in the year before the pandemic, he still missed the last month of the season and still won MVP regardless because he was that good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean it sucks that the prime is I mean statistics wise, you look at like 2012 through 22. And it felt like way longer than that, but there is a lot of worry that it might be like we might not ever see that again in a full season, and it is extremely concerning because back in like 2016, 17, I remember people posting about everything he was on pace for, and it was like he could reach Barry Bonds' home run total, he could reach this, he could reach that, and he's currently sitting at 378 home runs. Like he's no longer a lock for 500 career home runs, and that used to be like he was supposed to be getting there now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like yeah, through 2019, he had 285 home runs through his age 27 season. So so yeah, I mean obviously, if you double that and it takes the same amount of time, he would have had well over 500 by his age like 33, 34 season, and he's in his age 32 season now. Yeah, he'd be approaching that. But yeah, just yeah, very very unfortunate. I hope, because yeah, I mean, still talking about him, he's still 32. If he could still have, like, I mean,
Yeah,
if things magically,
I'd say we're talking about him like he's 36. Like he's still got a lot of career left. He's got a lot of contract left. So like there still is a lot of time for him to catch up on some of the time that he's missed.
if he can magically stay healthy, he would have like at least 5 more good years in him probably.
Yes.
It's just, we haven't been able to watch it, in full form in a full season in a very long time, unfortunately. Yeah. Anything more on the Trout injury?
Yeah, I mean it sucks. Like the thing that I tweeted was Mike Trout is an undisputed first ballot Hall of Famer, but also like the biggest what if in baseball history, right? Like you like if as a sabermetrics people, you look at the baseball reference pages of guys like Mickey Mantle, of guys like Willie Mays, of guys who had like hilarious baseball reference pages, and you're like, how did you even like get to that? And Mike Trout was supposed to be our way of seeing it, and it's being taken from us.
Yeah, he's a guy who hasn't had 500 plate appearances in a season since his age 27 season, and he still has managed to put up 86 career WAR.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. Yeah, it simply does not happen. And yeah, like, if it did happen, it's usually guys who played a really really long time ago. It's or guys who like guys on that pace were like Barry Bonds, who obviously was great before steroids, but also got a little help in the end. So yeah, it seems almost unimaginable right now. But and I don't think we're seeing it in a player in the 2020s, except for Ohtani, who obviously has his own thing, and we don't know how long that might last. But we're enjoying it while it's happening. Yeah. So yeah, anything more on the Trout injury?
I think that's it. I'm hoping for a speedy recovery. And yeah, hopefully, I don't know. I still think there's room for him. I mean, he's definitely not qualifying for any rate stats at this point. I think realistically, like he could be back. If you keep your fingers crossed by the All Star game, and he could still play in it, that would be very fun. When was the last time he played in an All Star game?
Yeah, I don't
Was
know.
it 22? Because
Um,
he was an All Star in 2023, but I don't think he played in it.
yeah, probably not, because he only played 82 games, so he must have gotten injured before the
Yeah,
halfway
I
mark.
mean, if he was there, he would have started, right? Because there's no way he would be an All
Um,
Star as a reserve.
yeah, I mean, it was last year was, statistically like his worst year, but still, he probably would
Yeah.
have deserved to be a starter.
Yes, 100%.
Um,
Um.
yeah, he could still hit 30 home runs this year. That's the crazy thing.
Oh, easily. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I mean, he only has to come back and hit 20,
right.
which he could do in like 2 months.
With his fly ball and barrel rates, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I mean, he was fly balling like 40% this year.
Yeah, shout out to him.
I think the last time he played in an All Star game was 2019.
Very unfortunate.
And he's had 3 All-Star appearances since. Like he's had 3 All-Star selections since then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he probably did he get selected in 2021? Because he started that year crazy.
Yeah, he did. He was already out for the year and still got selected
Yeah, because he
because
had
he had
a
a 1090 OPS. And also, I was to say, as much as we like hate on fan voting, it is pretty good that I am glad that it's just like uh it's inflated Mike Trout's All-Star numbers.
That's true. Yeah, we do need that to for him to catch up to the Jeters of the world. We need him.
Yeah.
We need him to get small star selections, and also the fact that those polls opened up, especially back then, like in early May,
Oh my God,
probably help
yeah. They used to
probably
open
helped him
them
out.
really. They used to open them like around right now.
Yeah, I feel like they opened them in April back in the day, like wait, like
Yeah.
back in the
Honestly, they probably
2013.
just opened they probably opened up like when pitchers and catchers reported at some point.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. But
Like
yeah, so
here's a video of Chris Sale throwing. Should he be an all-star this year? You can't vote on that. You have to wait for position players, but we're gonna open them up anyway.
indeed, yeah. So yeah, the Angels are 12 and 21 right now. They're below what we thought was going to be the worst AL West team, but could be the second worst AL West team, at least for now. Um, the Oakland, soon to be Sacramento Athletics, are breaking even. They're at
Actually,
500 right
it's
now.
actually the Athletics.
The Athletic, oh yeah, this
They're
the
not changing their
Athletics.
name. Yeah.
It's like the Ohio State University. It's the Athletics, but they're 17 and 17 right now, which is much above expectations. We would have probably expected them to be around Angels level right now, 12 and 21, or maybe even worse. I mean, they had the worst, yeah, they had the worst record in baseball last year. What are your thoughts on this old development here?
I mean, it's very fun, right? Like, I mean, this is a fan base that we have all felt for ever since it was announced that they were leaving Oakland and the way that they did so. I mean, I think we've all been, uh, as a baseball community, very outspoken against this move and the people that are making it happen. So it's fun to see the team is at least winning games. I mean, I don't want to get too fairy tale about it because it's not worth the hope. But I mean, it's fun to see them like being competitive. They have a 125 weighted runs created plus since April 22nd, in which is when this all started. They were 6 games below 500 at 8 and 14. They are now 17 and 17, so that's what, like 9 and 4 in the last 13.
Uh, nine
9 and
9 and 3.
Yeah, 9 and 3 in their last 12.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty sick with it right now. Their pitching staff has actually been like overall throughout the year pretty good.
Hmm.
Well, I guess non-park adjusted, park adjusted their pitching average to a 100 ERA plus, but compared to last year, that is a major improvement because they were god awful last year. They
Hmm.
have a 3.75 ERA and 3.83 FIP. They've been really, making their bones on soft contact. They have the fifth lowest average exit velocity against and the lowest barrel rate against. I didn't check to see what what they were at since April 22nd, as you mentioned, because yeah, if they've won 9 of their last 12, I imagine they've been pitching fairly well.
So they have
Also
they have a 297 team ERA with a 405 FIP. So let's just
makes
enjoy this
sense.
while we have it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I didn't expect I did not expect the rotation of Paul Blackburn, Ross Stripling, JP Sears, and
Alex
Alex
Wood.
Wood
Yeah.
to to be really boosting their FIP down, getting that strikeout minus walk rate up. But they're doing the thing now, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, the big thing, I mean, we haven't even talked about, the most exciting part of this team, which is the bullpen. Um,
Mm.
Mason Miller was our player to watch collectively. And it felt obvious to go with him. Like it felt a little too obvious, but I mean, I think he's even exceeded our expectations. He's been the undisputed best reliever in baseball this year. Just in this span, he's pitched five and a third innings pitched with 20.25 strikeouts per nine, no walks, no home runs allowed, an 80% ground ball rate, a FIP of minus 1.35. Overall, he has a negative FIP this season at negative 0.06. Yeah, he's been remarkable, but they've also had guys like Luis Arraez step up. They've had Austin Adams step up for them, Mitch Spence. They've had a lot of really strong relievers, not just in this span, but throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Kyle Muller, another one, their opening day starter last year. They've transitioned into the bullpen. He's been getting asked for them.
Above replacement radio,
Oh.
above replacement radio YouTube page, if you want to check out Mason Miller's Baseball Savant page, because I figured I wouldn't even tell it. I just show it because it's
It's too much
100th
to go through.
percentile, 100th percentile, 100th percentile, 91st percentile, 98th, 100th, 60th for the walks. Who really cares? Because who really cares about it's still above average.
Oh
and
no,
that's
too many guys are getting to first base.
Yeah.
Good thing no one can hit this guy anyway.
No barrels allowed, which is cool. And it's funny to have a 54% strikeout rate and also elite contact.
Yeah,
contact
usually those
numbers
things
against you.
are usually mutually exclusive.
Yeah, usually guys who have higher strikeout rates have maybe a little bit of harder contact against them, but no, not Mason Miller. He has a 19% hard hit rate against him.
I do think I said something about in my how about that, or not my how about that, in my player to watch segment about him being like, yeah, they have him as a closer this year. I'm not really sure why. It's not like they're gonna be leading many games in the ninth anyway. And you know what? I'll stand corrected on that one because they did have him starting games last year before he got injured.
Yeah, I was under the mindset of like he's good, he should get more innings, but I guess he is kind of better as a reliever right now. I don't think he'd be doing this necessarily if he was a starter.
Oh, it wouldn't be doing this.
No.
I don't know. If he was a starter, do you still think he'd be their best rotation option? I think it's possible, but I
Probably.
think
Like maybe not
hey, I mean, if you have this going, keep this going.
Yeah, maybe not a 54% strikeout rate, but like 30 or more than that. Like that
I
would,
love that he's doing it on four seam slider too. Like just the most basic arsenal you could ever ask for as a reliever.
yeah, exactly. It's like it's 2007 all over again.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Oh.
it's fun when he's averaging 100.7 on his fastball.
Yeah, that is something to look out for. That's 2.4 miles per hour more than last year when he was, had some starts in the mix as well. That wouldn't be happening if he was a starter too.
An average exit velocity of 85.5 miles per hour with a 28.6% fly ball rate and a 14.3% pop-up rate is like beyond phenomenal.
Yeah, it's all turning up. We got to enjoy this while we can.
It's all strikeouts and weak flyouts.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So yeah, that's a highlight of the A's. They have some other guys that are doing pretty well too. With
Urseg's the other big one in the bullpen.
Yeah, Urseg's got almost 13 strikeouts per nine, 1.93 ERA, 2.01 FIP. So yeah,
more strong, more good fastball velocity stuff.
Yeah. And
how did he go from the wait, was he in the Sean Murphy trade?
He
says he was with the Brewers.
Possibly, who knows? Austin Adams also kind of coming out of the woodwork after setting the hit by pitch record 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I think it was 3.
Yeah, 3 years ago. But yeah, he's got a 3.05 FIP, 1.74 ERA. He's doing pretty well for the A's too.
Okay, no, the A's did not get Luis Arraez in the Sean Murphy trade.
I
do want to know who they got him from.
They're still losing, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're not beating the allegations on that trade. It was a May 2023 trade. Oh wow, it was a minor league. It was for cash considerations.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's a big dub.
Big dub for Oakland.
What, David Forst?
Not Billy Bean anymore. I know that.
Is David Forst still the GM over there? Yeah, he is a D. He is a GM. Yeah, David Force, big W.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we advance through the season, what what are the odds that the A's are fourth place or above in the AL West?
Fourth place or above. I'll give it like 35%.
Yeah, I think them and the Angels, especially the Angels without Trout, are kind of like neck and neck, honestly.
Yeah,
Like because yeah, I mean, what made the Angels like somewhat entertaining were Ohtani and Trout, and they still managed to only win in the low 70s for those couple of years. And and now they don't have them. Well, temporarily they don't have Trout, but they
they definitely
permanently
don't
don't
have
have
Ohtani.
Ohtani.
He's not
Yeah.
coming back.
So like yeah, I mean, Angels are obviously a bad team, and the A's seem to be doing better right now. The sustainability of it is obviously in question, but yeah, it seems like they could be somewhat watchable right now, or at least who knows how long, but I think there's a shot they could be somewhat watchable this year.
For sure.
Um, yeah, anything more on the A's?
I think that's all I had. Um, we should just briefly shout out the Mariners real quick before we reinvite. But I was watching their broadcast last night on Fox. They said that 21 straight games where their starter has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer. That is tied with the. I wasn't able to find like this on StatHead, but according to the Fox broadcast, that is tied with the 1917 White Sox, a team famous for their great pitching and nothing else. Um, that yeah, 21 straight games with the starter allowing 2 earned runs or fewer, only trailing the 1915 Washington Senators that did so in 22 straight games. So the Mariners are going for the tying their record today, if that is so, with Bryce Miller on the mound
Yeah, yeah, who
against
has
the
a very low
Astros.
ERA himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, 1917 White Sox, legendary like Eddie Seacott, Lefty Williams.
Yeah,
They
can't believe they didn't win the World Series that year.
Now they won the World Series that year, but 2 years
Oh
later
wait,
they
no, 2 years later. That's why I mixed up my White Sox 1910s championships.
I just don't know why a bunch of them just like straight up retired after 1920. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's crazy. Like they were still
They
going
had
well.
years,
Like
yeah, they had years left in
Joe
them.
Jackson. Yeah,
Yeah.
Joe Jackson just kind of called it quits for some reason. Eddie Seacoat, same thing. Happy Felsch, same thing.
Yeah, I heard they didn't put Shoeless Joe Jackson into the Hall of Fame because he just didn't accumulate enough count
Yeah,
stats.
I mean, you have to be a 10-year player, right? Actually, he probably was anyway.
Yeah,
He
those few
definitely was
games
anyway.
with the Philadelphia Athletics in like 1910 pushed him over the edge. But no,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's the case is they didn't believe in his count stats enough.
Yeah, I know. Well, he only had. Oh wow, he absolutely had the wins above replacement to make it in. Yeah, no, he only had. He didn't get to 2,000 hits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when you're playing in the dead ball area, you got to get there if you want to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, come
Um,
on now.
but
Yeah, but that's why.
yeah,
Yeah, and the 1915 Senators, which apparently were the Nationals, according to Baseball Reference. I'm calling BS on that.
yeah, like I've heard them be
Is that
referred to
still a
as the
thing?
Senators.
Do they still just are they still gaslighting me into thinking that they were yeah, what the heck? Yeah, Baseball Reference has been trying to gaslight us into thinking the Senators were the Nationals for a bunch of years when Walter Johnson was there.
Yeah, they've been consistently referred to as the Senators by like everything. It's not even
Yeah.
a debate. I don't know why they're calling them that.
Yeah. No, I
And it's
don't
not like
understand.
Senators is an offensive term. I guess you have some
Well,
Senators you don't like.
well, some might believe it is.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any senator I particularly enjoy,
Yeah.
but still, maybe that's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're just anti Congress.
They're anti-government.
Yeah. Or they're pro like oligarchy. It's like there should be one person ruling all over all of us.
Yeah, no, none of this senator BS.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
like
need a
they're who
House of
just
Representatives.
tell me who the president is.
Yeah. Yeah,
If you want
exactly.
a name, give me the Washington presidents or get out.
Yeah. The Washington Dictators won the 1924 World Series.
I don't
Uh,
walk off.
I don't know. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and they had the championship stolen from them.
Yeah,
Big issue with presidents in the 20s,
that is true. Yeah,
whether it be the 1920s or the 2020s.
they should have really stopped the count. I mean, the game in game
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, they were very upset at the Capitol that off season.
Indeed.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the Mariners, um, yeah, they over the last 21 games, Mariners starters have a 138 ERA. The next best in the league is 244, so they have the best rotation ERA by over a full run. Their team ERA is 168, which is the lowest any team has had in a 21 game span since the 2017 Cleveland team that had a rotation including Cy Young, Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer, Mike Clevenger, Carlos Carrasco, and those are like the big four, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like prime Carrasco too.
Yeah. People forget Prime Carrasco.
Yeah, it was good.
He was awesome, and the streak was during their big win streak, the 22 gamer.
Right.
But
Right.
anyway, each Mariners starter, Logan Gilbert has a 102 ERA over the span. George Kirby has a 113. Luis Castillo has a 138. Bryce Miller at 154, and Emerson Hancock, you know, really needs to start pulling his weight more. He's at 208. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's a 5 starter. I guess
Yeah.
he gets a little slack for that,
Yeah.
that very high 208 ERA.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
guess if
that would only be like what a 115 ERA plus in 1968,
yeah,
probably.
Probably around there, yeah. I just remember when we covered Steve Carlton for the history series, I think he had a like 2.9 something ERA that year, and it was below average. Or
Yeah,
it was a below average
it was
ERA.
a 99.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess if there was a rotation you'd expect this to happen from, it probably would be the Mariners this
Even
year.
without Brian Wu.
Yeah,
And
true. Yeah.
they still got a starter on the IL.
Yeah, that's something. Which although yeah, having one starter on the IL is like, he
That's a
struck
dub.
gold.
Yeah,
He struck gold in 2024 if you have one guy in the IL.
and it's your 5 starter.
Yeah, exactly.
You had 4 guys throw 90 innings for you. That's insane.
Yeah. What's the secret there?
How are you doing this?
Um, but but yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's helped the Mariners out. I think they're leading the AL West right now. And they just beat the Astros yesterday. They're playing the rubber match of that series today.
Yeah, they are up by half a game in the West.
Over Texas.
Yeah, and then a game and a half over Oakland.
Yeah.
So like we could get super weird in the next
Yeah.
couple of days if a couple things go the right way.
That would be awesome. I'd love
I
to see
mean,
that.
A's are
Personally.
playing the Marlins again today. Like that's got to be a win.
Yeah, it
Who's
should be.
pitching? Who's pitching? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Um,
Hang on. I really want to see who's pitching. It is Joe Boyle against not Sixto Sanchez. No, Sixto Sanchez is starting today.
ooh, that's tough. That's kind of tough for
He has an
Oakland.
80 RA.
All right. Well,
And then they have Texas coming in. So yeah.
that's a big top
And
of the AL West.
the Mariners go to Minnesota to face the Twins who have won 12 in a row.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So like we could get weird here.
We could get very weird here.
I think for one day we got to see it. A's in sole possession of first.
Yeah, that would just one day. That's all I
like
need.
come on. I know that's like on the borderline of asking too much, but like come on.
It should.
Like
It
let me
should
have
be
it.
doing that.
Yeah, and like they're home. Like I don't know. I mean, what do you think it would take for the A's to draw an attendance of like 20,000 this year? Like because people want to see the team. Like, is it still like over 500 in June? Is
I'd
it
say
like
past All-Star break within 3 games of a playoff spot.
okay?
That's my
Because like I don't know. I think
standard
people
we just
because
made.
it's like we're talking all this, fun stuff about the A's. It's like we're not really being serious about them making the playoffs or staying 500. I mean, you look at their ERA versus FIP differential that we talked about earlier. Um, and I can't imagine A's fans are like holding out much hope either.
Right.
Um, but like, what would it take? Like, how long do they have to be like this for us to be like, okay, hold on a second?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything more on the Mariners?
No. Just shout out to that rotation. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And as we preface, we'll get into this a little bit, but the Twins have won 12 in a row after a pretty rough start. That rough start is the reason why they're not leading the division right now, but still they have kind of, reversed ship and they're 19 and 13 now thanks to a 12-game winning streak. I will say 10 of those games have been against the White Sox and Angels, but I think it's kind of a correction after some of the tough teams they had to face to start the year. They had one of the toughest schedules to start the year in baseball. So as a result, they kind of underperformed a little bit, but now they are dominating the teams they're supposed to dominate. They also won 2 against the Red Sox, who are not necessarily great, but better than the Angels and White Sox. So yeah, what have you been thinking about this win streak?
Before the win streak started, they had never faced a team that was under 500. Every team they had faced was 500 or above. So when they face, when they face teams that are under 500 plus 2 games against the Red Sox, they don't lose,
Yeah,
right? Like that's just
absolutely.
fundamentally what's going on here. Their offense has been, I mean, their offense, everything's been good. Their offense is slashing 309, 378, 515. That is the highest average, second highest OBP, and highest slugging in all of Major League Baseball for a league leading 157 weighted runs created plus and a 5.2 position player FWAR. Again, league leading, and leading this bunch as we all expected is Willie Castro, who over this 12-game hit win streak is slashing 440, 451, 720 for a 235 weighted runs created plus and a 525 BABIP. So, I mean, he's been performing as we expected him to, and as we expect him to do so throughout the season. Trevor Larnach is slashing 417, 500, 625 for a 225 weighted runs created plus. He also has a 500 BABIP. Ryan Jeffers, who I believe had the highest OPS among all catchers last year, is slashing 366, 449, 659 for a 212 weighted runs created plus. Max Kepler and Edward Julian also have 200 weighted runs created pluses. So that's 5 hitters that are above 200 for the weighted runs created plus in this span. And then also Byron Buxton, who is unfortunately on the IL right now, has a 193. Jose Miranda is at 180. Carlos Santana is at 140. So their entire lineup has been, outside of Carlos Correa, believe it or not, has been an MVP level hitter over this span.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, um you have out of guys with 25 or more plate appearances during the streak, you have one, two, three, four, five, six guys with an OPS over 1,000, and that's in
Mm-hmm.
a month where the offensive environment is very low. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And yeah, you know, people will talk about, they're facing the White Sox and Angels, but you're not expected to win every game against every bad team. That's just, even the worst teams usually win at least a third of their games. So it's not like you're supposed to go 12 and 0 against these teams. There's bound to be a couple losses here and there, but the Twins have not had that. Yeah, and in terms of the Twins in the long term, I feel like this kind of reestablishes it eliminates the doubt that there was about them to start the season. And I think people were kind of getting hopeful on other teams as winning the AL Central, but I feel like this kind of reestablishes them as the firm favorite in that division.
For sure. I'd like to go over some of the rotation as well. Chris Paddock, who we gushed over with Mark Simon last year on the podcast, has a 221 FIP, 18 innings pitched, and a 53.3% ground ball rate in this span. Bailey Ober, who is one of my, my favorites, a 315 FIP and a 6.3% home run to fly ball ratio, which home run to fly ball ratio is like the X factor stat for Bailey Ober because he's going to have very good strikeout to walk numbers. He always has. He just leaves too many pitches out over the middle. And he's been doing that a little, or well, I don't know if he's still been doing it or not, but they're not leaving the yard as much, which is good. Pablo Lopez has struck with the home run ball, but he does have a 30% K rate minus walk rate in this span as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so things are going right. It's cool that this turnaround happened so quickly and they weren't necessarily like muddling around 500 for a long time like a lot of successful teams start out with doing. And yeah, now they're trying to do the math here, but maybe like 2 games back of the Guardians, and that can be easily made up over time. So yeah, the Twins, they were never bad. They were always.
Yeah, every now and then you see those teams where they start out slow and you kind of just spend the season waiting for them to finally go on a run. Like a team that comes to mind is like the 2017 Cleveland team, or the 2019 Cleveland team rather. Like, the Twins, jumped out to a division lead, but we were all like, all right, well, Guardians are going to take over. Well, they weren't the Guardians then, but Cleveland's going to take over at some point. And they did win 93 games, but they just never went on that kind of run that would have won them the division. To be fair, the Twins did win 100 games that year, but we were still kind of just waiting for it from them, and it just didn't happen. 2019 Red Sox is another one, right? Like we were kind of waiting for them to go on that run. It just never happened. And honestly, like to a degree, even like the 2022 or 2023 Astros, like we were waiting for them to run away with the division for so long. They did still win it, but it took until the final day. And we didn't have to wait for that for the Twins. We didn't have to wait at all. We got it still in April.
Yeah. I feel like 2018 Nationals also come to mind.
Yeah, that's another good one.
They were like probably projected division favorites, and they finished around 500 that year. And yeah, they'd won it, I think, the 2 years prior. But yeah, yeah, it's cool that we don't have to wait. We don't have to be in that limbo where we're like feeling stupid for still being hopeful for the Twins. So yeah, they're back and ready to go, ready to potentially dominate the AL Central. So we'll see about that. We'll see if this continues to a degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything more before we get into players to highlight?
No, let's do it.
All right. So yeah, now on to, we'll start with the lows so that we end with the highs. But yeah, it is our Sunday, May 5th, our 2024 Cinco de Mayo edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats, he's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting
slightly alarming.
Yeah, so for my slightly alarming, I'm going with the guy that we both put on one of our top 10 positional lists. And granted, he was not super high on that list, but he was there, and he hasn't performed quite like it this season. I'm talking about Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. He is slashing 140, 235, 256, 491 this year for a 51 weighted runs created plus and minus 0.5 FWAR. That 140 batting average is the lowest among all qualifiers. This year, his pop-up rate has increased from 8.3% to 13.4%, and that is tied for the 17th highest pop-up rate in all of baseball. His pull rate is also down this year. It is at 29.3%. That's the lowest it has been in any season of his in his career. The thing that is most concerning to me is Randy Arozarena is swinging and missing a lot in the zone. His zone contact rate is down to just 68.4%, which is the third lowest among the 189 qualifiers this season. The league average is usually around 82%. Randy Arozarena is at 68.4%. His 8.1% drop in zone contact rate from last season is also the third steepest decline among qualifiers. Arozarena has hit 18 fly balls this year. Only one has been pulled. That is a 5.6% pull rate on fly balls. That is the 11th lowest among the 304 hitters with at least 10 fly balls hit this year. His hard hit rate has also gone from 48.3% to 34.1%, the fifth steepest decline, and he has also increased his whiff rate by 5%. So he's making weaker contact, his timing is off, he's not hitting the ball in the zone particularly well, and his batted ball metrics have been pretty bad, especially with hitting the ball too high in the air. So Randy Arozarena, for that reason, is getting a slightly alarming.
Yeah, Randy Arozarena.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, a little small victory for us because MLB Network put him number 40 on their top 100 list overall.
Yeah.
So we did not put him top 50. So I guess that
No.
is a small victory for us. My slightly alarming is about a guy who was in both of our top 50s. I think maybe in our each of our 30s, and he was my number 5 third baseman, your number 4. I'm talking about Alex Bregman, who overall has not started well, but especially in the last 13 games has not been performing well at all. In his last 13 games, Alex Bregman is hitting 137 with a 420 OPS. Out of 175 qualifiers in the span, he has the 6th lowest average, 6th lowest slugging, and 9th lowest OPS. And out of 130 hitters with 200 plus pitches seen in the span, his expected batting average is 4th lowest, expected slugging is 4th lowest, and expected WOBA is 8th lowest. So along with the actual numbers being bad, his under the surface numbers are also very poor. Alex Bregman's average exit velocity has gone from 89.1 miles per hour before the span to 84.2 miles per hour in the span. And out of 130 hitters, his average exit velocity is 9th lowest. Also, his sweet spot rate in the span is 20%. League average is around 33%. And that sweet spot zone is obviously important because hitters hit around 600 and slug around 1100 in that area. But Bregman is at 20%, and out of 88 hitters with 40 plus batted balls in the span, Bregman's sweet spot rate is the 2nd lowest. Also, during the span, 33% of his batted balls have had a launch angle of 40 degrees or higher. Those are kind of non-competitive fly balls. They're only ever home runs if they're hit to down the line and hit very hard. But it is very, very often not a hit. And out of 88 hitters, that percentage of batted balls at 40 degrees or higher is 2nd highest, and he is 1 for 15 with a single on those batted balls. So yeah, Alex Bregman popping up the ball a little too much. His strikeout and walk numbers have actually stayed very, very good. He's just hitting the ball soft and hitting the ball very highly in the air, which has resulted in him having a 137 average and 420 OPS over the last 13 games. So Alex Bregman.
Slightly alarming.
So now we transition from the lows to the highs, where we're talking players who are standing out with our Sunday, May 5th, 2024 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a...
How about that?
Yeah, so for my how about that, I'm going with another guy that was on our top 10 positional list, not in our top 50s, but a guy that I was really high on, banking on a breakout from him this year, and we're seeing it. It's Riley Green. Since April 7th of this year, Riley Green is slashing 322, 444, 621 for a 1065 OPS and a 199 weighted runs created plus, as well as 1.7 FWAR. And over the span, among the 169 qualifiers, he ranks 3rd in OBP, 4th in slugging, 3rd in OPS, 3rd in weighted runs created plus, and tied for 2nd in FWAR. So he's been a top 5 position player since April 7th. Riley Green has decreased his ground ball rate by 6% from last year to this year, and he has increased his fly ball rate by 5%. And since April 7th, the average exit velocity on his fly balls is 100.5 miles per hour. That is the 3rd highest among the 248 hitters with at least 10 fly balls in this span, which is why he's racked up a lot of extra base hits, and I believe has 7 home runs this season so far. He has also increased his walk rate from 8.4% last year to 16.9% this year. That is 99th percentile walk rate. And he has decreased his chase rate from 26.5% to 19.7%. Since April 7th, he has swung at just 37.1% of all pitches thrown to him. That is the 6th lowest rate among the 168 hitters with at least 300 total pitches seen in that span. So he's been very, very patient. He's swinging at the pitches he wants to swing at, and he's doing some incredible damage on them. He also has an 18.3% barrel rate and 87th percentile outs above average. So as of right now, Riley Green has kind of been borderline 5 tool as a player. At least he's hitting very well for contact, for power. He's playing good defense. He's running the base as well. He's doing excellent at everything. I really was banging on a breakout for him this year for the Tigers to be my sleeper team, and we've kind of seen exactly that.
Yeah, Riley Green.
How about that?
So also another dub for us because we both ranked him 7 in right field. And I don't think anyone on the MLB Network panel ranked him top 10. I
Yeah,
think it was just us. So shout out to us.
shout out to us.
Victory. My how about that? Did not see any lists before this season. He has come out of completely nowhere, and as this beach ball disappears on my laptop and I can actually scroll down, I will talk about him. But this guy did not see any lists. Came out of nowhere and splash because it is reliever diving time.
Ooh.
It is Reed Garrett of the New York Mets, who has broken out for the team out in Queens. In 17 innings this year, he's allowed 1 earned run for a 0.53 ERA, and it's not a matter of luck. Well, maybe a little bit of luck, but not an astounding amount. He has a 1.49 expected ERA. Out of 208 qualifying relievers, he is the 3rd lowest ERA among them. And out of 225 total pitchers with 250 plus pitches thrown, his expected batting average, expected slugging, and expected WOBA are all the lowest. So he is having the best underlying results of anyone with 250 plus pitches thrown. Also, in his this has been a major improvement from what his career was previously. In his 3 previous seasons in Major League Baseball, his highest strikeout rate in a season was 18%. This year, that strikeout rate is 43%. It is more than doubled by a decent amount. Also, out of 208 qualifying relievers, his strikeout rate ranks 4th. His previous career best whiff rate was 29%, and this year it is 44%, a 15 percentage point increase. Out of 309 pitchers with 100 plus swings against them, his whiff rate ranks 2nd. That's 2nd in a pool of over 300. His previous career best call strike and whiff rate was 28%, and this year it is 39%. And out of 225 pitchers with 250 plus pitches thrown, his called strike and whiff rate is the highest. Along with that, not only is he striking a ton of batters out, he is allowing very soft contact. His career best average exit velocity before this year was 87.1 miles per hour, and this year it is 84.3 miles per hour. And out of 225 pitchers with 250 plus pitches thrown, his average exit velocity is 6th lowest. He also has a 21% sweet spot rate and 14% pop-up rate. So not only is he allowing soft contact, he's not allowing competitive fly balls, he's not allowing line drives, and he's allowing a lot of pop-ups, which are very, very, very low percentage in terms of success for hitters. Along with that, partially part of this has to do with a bit of a change in repertoire for Reed Garrett. I think the Mets might have highlighted that his sweeper is very effective, or maybe changed his sweeper and made him use it more, because his sweeper usage has gone from 11% last year to 26% this year, and hitters are 0 for 14 with 7 strikeouts against that sweeper with a 44% whiff rate. And part of that sweeper success has been the 2.2 inches of average horizontal movement added to that sweeper since last year. So it's moving more. He sacrificed a little bit of velocity for it, but it's working out for him as hitters are over 14 with 7 strikeouts against it. But overall, the grand scheme, Reed Garrett has been one of the best relievers in baseball this year, and he is getting a
How about that?
So
yeah, we love a 31-year-old reliever breakout.
Yeah, just for a team that's known for like having bullpen issues too.
I'm also glad we got a Met done early, because they're always like the last team that we do.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Because they're I feel like they've always been sort of top heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shall do it for players to highlight. Anything to add before we wrap this up?
I think that's it. One thing that, like, I don't know, this is extremely anecdotal. I feel like something that I never saw before a couple weeks ago that I've seen a bunch now is or third disengagement violations. Like, I saw the Pirates had one a few weeks ago against the Red Sox. I saw Griffin Canning have one against the Guardians. And there were a couple others that happened like recently, and I feel like I never saw them before a few weeks ago, and they just keep popping up. That's purely anecdotal, but I feel like third disengagement violations are like happening at a weird spike right now.
Yeah, I must not be paying close enough attention. I haven't been
I felt like I
seeing it,
never
but
saw one all of last year.
I definitely never saw one.
I'm sure they happened plenty. I probably just didn't see them. I feel like I've seen them a ton in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, maybe they're just paying less attention to that, or just it's not as present in their mind this
Yeah.
year. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'd love to see some data on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you were listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, or just get a shortcut to Mason Miller's Baseball Savant page, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out all the cool stuff on there, our playlists, including the baseball history series that we did. We wrapped that up over 3 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Wow.
But it still remains fairly evergreen. Also, what's also evergreen is most of the interviews we've done, whether it be Chris Rose, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, Jeff Passan, Foolish Bailey, among others. Go check that out. Check out all the interviews on the playlist on our YouTube channel. Also, follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter, Echoes_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Current, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replace Radio for all the show needs. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.